Okay, today we're going to learn Shabbat Daf Kuf Lamed Hey. Today's shiur is dedicated by Miriam Tannenbaum with gratitude to the inspiring Daf Yomi women of RBS, Kilat Avat Zion. So grateful to have started this journey together and to continue even as we move to Efrat. And by Margie Zwiebel for Refuah Shlema for Chaim. 1 second, I have to get it up in front of me. For Chaim Tzvi Ben Yeta Bluma. Okay, we're now going to start with the very bottom of Kuf Lamed Dalet Amud Bet, Safek Vandroginus. So today we learned from yesterday's Mishnah about the Safek and Androginus Eimachaladin Alav Tashabat. This means that if the 8th day falls out on Shabbat and there's a Safek about whether or not we're supposed to do the Brit Milah today, which we'll see a bunch of cases, or it's an androgynous, which is someone who has signs of genitals of both male and female. In that case, we do not do the Brit Milah, although we saw that Rabbi Yehuda allows in the case of an androgynous, and today we'll see a little bit more in depth, not too much. I'm not going to really talk too much about this, but we'll see what they do. Tanu Rabbanan, they're going to bring a Braita, or lato. So if you remember, it says, Ubayom Hashmini Yimol Basar or lato. Now, it could have just said Basar or lato means his orla. So why does it add his instead of just saying we will cut off the orla? The obligation is to cut off the orla, the foreskin. Instead it says his foreskin. So they learn from that, orla tov vadai dochet hashabbat, velo safek dochet hashabbat. That only a definitive orla is going to override Shabbat, not a safek orla. This didn't really help us. It didn't really explain what safek orla, but now the Baraita is going to go into more in depth. Or lavadai dochet Shabbat, velo androginus dochet Shabbat. So now they're going to give all these cases of vadai when it's definite versus safek. So vadai is a regular person versus an androgynous who's a safek. Now, kind of parenthetically, they're going to mention Rabbi Yehuda Omer androginus dochet Shabbat ve'anush karet. Not only as an androgynous does it override Shabbat, but because an androgynous is treated as a vadai, he for sure has to be obligated in Brit Milah. That means you're going to get karet if you don't do it. So again, there's two issues. Number one is, does it override Shabbat? And number two, are you going to get karet if you don't do it? That was parenthetical because now we're going back to Tanakama. So we had Tanakama who started out and started listing all the cases that are safek that are not overriding Shabbat. One is androgynous, to which Rabbi Yehuda disagrees with that. And now back, like I said, to Tanakama. If you were born, we talked about this in the previous class, which was, if you're born ben hashmashot, that means you're born between sunset and when 3 stars come out on Friday, then the following week, Friday is, you're not sure, is it day or is it night? So were you born on Friday? Were you born on Saturday? So what do we say? Well, if you're born on Friday, your Brit Milah is Friday. If you were born on Shabbat, then your Brit Milah should be on Shabbat. Now, what happens? Friday, since it's maybe Shabbat and not necessarily, so you can't do a Brit Milah early, so we can't give the baby a Brit Milah on Friday. If it was Shabbat, well, then you can't do the Brit Milah on Shabbat because maybe it was Friday. So in that case, you actually give the Brit Milah on Sunday. Okay, this is where you can get into interesting cases of twins. One born ben hashmashot and one born a few minutes later on Shabbat for sure, and the second one ends up with the Brit Milah before the first one because the second one has his Brit Milah on Shabbat because he was for sure born on Shabbat, whereas the first one ends up with the Brit Milah the day after. So it's a funny creative halachic case where theoretically someone could have a Brit Milah, one could have it after the other even though he was actually born earlier. Okay, next case. So, or lato vadai dochet Shabbat, velo nolad keshu mahul dochet Shabbat, and not if you're born already circumcised. Okay, what does this mean? It means, well, you don't have foreskin there. So now there's a machloket about this. They say, Shebeit Shammai omrim tzarich latif mimenu dam brit, ubeit Hillel omrim eino tzarich. Okay, so according to Tanakama, there's a machloket Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel about whether you have to be matif dam brit. Okay, this means whether you have to, it's unclear exactly what it means. In certain cases, it means one thing. In other cases, it means something else. In this case, we're going to see that Beit Shammai is concerned that maybe, we're going to see this after, that maybe there's orlak fusha, maybe there's foreskin there and we just can't see it. So because of that, he says you have to be matif dam brit, which means you have to draw some blood. But it seems like he really means you need to cut something there because maybe you just don't see it. It seems more than just taking a little bit of blood. Beit Hillel says you don't need to do that. Okay, he thinks no lab mahul, it's fine. We're not concerned that there's foreskin that's covered. Amar, so that would be another case, according to Beit Hillel, of safek, that even if you'd say maybe you need to do this, it's certainly only safek, and you wouldn't need to do this on Shabbat. Amar Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar. But now we have a disagreement specifically regarding this machloket Beit Shammai Beit Hillel. It seems clear that there was some tradition that they had a machloket about hatafat ambrit, about drawing blood. The issue is, in which case were they referring to? Was the machloket about a tinok shenolad mahul, or according to Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar, it was actually about a different case? Lo nechleku Beit Shammai Beit Hillel al nolad kashu mahul shetzarich latif mimenu dam brit mipnei she'or lakfushai. He says everybody agrees that if you're born circumcised, there really must be foreskin there, and it's orla kvusha. It's just hidden. You can't see it. And therefore, everybody agrees that you have to do what we call hatafat ambrit. You have to draw some blood. But al ma nechleku, what's the actual machloka between them? Al ger shenitgayel keshu mahul. Their machloket is about someone who was circumcised as a non-Jew and then converted. And during the conversion, normally we do a brit milah. In this case, there's no need for a brit milah. They're already circumcised. So in this case, Beit Shammai omrim tzarich latif mimenu dam brit. Ubeit Hillel omrim ein tzarich latif mimenu dam brit. So according to Beit Hillel, they actually don't need hatafat dam brit, according to Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar. According to Tanakama, right? According to Tanakama, you would disagree, but according to Beit Hillel, you would have to do, if you notice, by the way, Beit Shammai says tzarich latif mimenu dam brit, and there's a little letter. If you have a regular Gemara, there's a little hay there. The hay says this is how we paskin. And it's interesting, normally we don't paskin like Beit Shammai, but here we do hold that you do hatafat ambrit. If a person converts and they're already circumcised, we do it, maybe because there's a whole debate about whether they even have a machloket about this or not. Anyway, according to Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar, the machloket has nothing to do with the tinok shalolad mahul, has to do with a ger shenitgayer and already had a brit milah beforehand. Again, it wasn't a brit milah, it was just a circumcision, but does he need to do atafat ambrit or not? So again, we have all these sfeikot, so let's just go back. The real issue was, Tanakama has this list of all the people who don't do a brit milah on Shabbat. We had the androgynous, we had someone born ben hashmashot, and then we have someone who was born with an orla, with no orla there, no foreskin. He was no lab mahul. And then you wouldn't do the hatafat ambrit. If you do hatafat ambrit, you wouldn't do it on Shabbat because it's only safek. Amar mar, v'lo safek dochet Shabbat latu yemai. Now they go and quote the first line of that Braita. The Braita kind of lined up, and it was classic style of a Mishnah where it says, only vadai, not safek, and then it went to list all the sfeikot. But theoretically, you didn't need that header line because you're already telling us all the sfeikot in the body of the Braita. So the fact that it said, and not safek, it must have been coming to include some additional case, which we have a lot in the Mishnah also, when it says that, right? What does it come to include? We just had this. So now they say, v'lo safek la'atuye mai. So they say, it's la'atuye hadetanu Rabbanan. It's to bring up the case that it's in the following Braita. Ben shiv'a mechalalim alav et Shabbat, uben shmona ein mechalalim alav et Shabbat. Okay, before we get to the safek case, first we're going to establish some ground lines. Some ground rules. We learned this already, that in their day they believed that if a baby was born after 7 months of pregnancy or 9 months of pregnancy, that is a healthy baby. But if a baby was born after 8 months, then it wasn't a viable baby and it wasn't going to make it. So if the child was born, obviously part of the problem here, and you think if this isn't true nowadays, then you would think that that wouldn't they know that were the case, right? That in other words, wouldn't they have seen reality? But it could be they weren't exactly clear when women got pregnant. So had to count exactly 7 months, 8 months, 9 months was probably not so clear. So, and that's what led them to believe that there were, they tried to maybe also, they also get this from the Torah, by the way, because there's cases of where women gave birth after 7 months, and then there's cases where women gave birth after 9 months. So they assume there's premature that's viable, there's regular births that are viable, but then there must be something because they saw a lot of babies died in childbirth, and they assume that had to do, or died soon after, that had to do somehow with this 8th month. Again, I can't exactly explain where they got to it, but that's what they understood. So ben shiv'a, if the baby's born after 7 months, then mechalalim alav et Shabbat, right? Assuming the baby's healthy enough to go through a Brit Milah, then you can be mechalel Shabbat if the 8th day comes out on Shabbat. Uben shmona ein mechalalim alav et Shabbat. But if it was born after 8 months, then you don't do the Brit Milah on the 8th day that falls on Shabbat. So that's because we assume the child's not going to be viable, in which case your Brit Milah is not worth anything, basically, because the baby's going to die. Safek ben shiv'ah, safek ben shmona. What if you're not sure? Which is what I said before. There must have been lots of cases where they weren't exactly sure what the status of the baby was. So that's the additional case of safek that the Bright is adding, ein mechalalim alav et Shabbat. So that would be a case where we're not mechalel Shabbat. Now they have a really interesting line about this ben shmona. It's not only relevant for laws of Brit Milah and whether it overrides Shabbat, but there's other relevancies, which is ben shmona hareu ke'even. What do we say about a rock? This goes back to muktzah. If you have, and this is a crazy halacha, you have an 8-month, a baby that was born after 8 months, which we assume is not going to be viable, you cannot, asur letaltelo, you cannot carry that baby on Shabbat, because the assumption is that baby's going to die. So it's basically as if it's dead now, and you can't move it on Shabbat, which is to imagine the thought of how they dealt with this. And then they even tell you, avalimo shochal minikto mipnei sakana. That you can't, again, muktzah doesn't mean touching. It's not forbidden to touch. I've told you that, right? This is the classic. Oh, you always think muktzah, you can't touch. No, you can't move. So you can't move it. So how does the mother nurse? So the mother bends down and nurses the baby bending down. And then the Gemara says, mipnei sakana. Now you would think sakana for the baby, but who cares about sakana for the baby? Because the assumption is the baby won't live. And it actually doesn't mean sakana for the baby. The sakana here is for the mother, right? People who are newborn mothers of newborn babies know that if you get engorged, you could get infections and it's dangerous. So they were worried about the mother getting infections. And for that reason, they allowed her to nurse the baby by bending down, and she can nurse the baby in that way, but not by actually picking up the child. This shows to what extent they really believed that this baby wasn't going to make it. Again, it's very, very hard to understand the reality here of, having a baby, even if the baby's not so healthy, the mother not being allowed to pick up the baby, not being allowed to nurse the baby in a normal way. It seems a little bit crazy, but again, you have to assume that the reality was different and that this baby really wasn't going to make it. Okay, so now, so someone's asking about the 8th month shouldn't have to do with Shabbat, right? The relevance of the 8th month baby on Shabbat is just that the baby is not considered viable and therefore can't be carried because it's viewed as muktzah. And number 2, one can't do the Brit Milah on the 8th day. Now, theoretically, you could do a Brit Milah to this baby. It almost seems like there's really no point to, but you could do it on another day. It just can't override Shabbat. So, okay, let's move on now. About Itmar. Rav, now, if we go back, I want to just review. In the previous machloket, what did we see? In the bright at the beginning of the page, because we got a little sidetracked because we wanted to know what lo safek dochet Shabbat came to include the baby that's safek, 8-month baby, safek, 7-month baby. But now going back to the original case, which was, does this child need hatafat ambrit if the baby is nolad mahul or not? So if you remember, Tanakama said that according to Beit Hillel, lo nolad kashuhu mahul dochet Shabbat, right? Because Beit Hillel and Wim, you don't need hatafat ambrit. So of course it wouldn't override Shabbat. And according to Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar, they all agree that an olam mahul needs tambrit because it's orla kvusha. So then the assumption is, right, that you need hatafat tambrit according to, again, we're going to paskin assuming like Beit Hillel. So according to Tanakama, you don't need to do hatafat tambrit. According to Shmuel, you do have to do hatafat tambrit. So Itmar, it was said, Itmar is normally a machloket between a moa'im. Okay, this was a machloket Tanaim, Tanakama, Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar. Now they say Rav Amar halacha keTanakama uShmuel Amar halacha keRabbi Shimon ben Elazar. So Rav paskined that a child does not need hatafat ambrit if he's born circumcised or without the foreskin, and Shmuel paskins that you do need it. Okay, like Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar. Rav Ada bar Ava. Now we're going to see another bit of a crazy story. It yalid lehahu yenuka keshu mahul. He had a child born circumcised or without the foreskin. Ahadre atle sarmoale. He went searching. Now it was Shabbat, where he needed the Brit Milah to be done on Shabbat. And he went searching for 13 moalim. He couldn't find anyone that was willing to do, he wanted to do this hatafat ambrit on Shabbat. Because again, if you hold, now it's a bit of a debate, we'll see. But if you hold that the child needs hatafat brit, like Shmuel, who paskin like Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar, so he wanted to do it on the 8th day, even though it was Shabbat. Now, what we didn't really get into there was, can you do it on Shabbat if you say you need the hatafat brit? It's another question, but we'll get to that in a minute. So he assumed that you did have to do it on Shabbat, and he tried to find mo'alim, and nobody was willing to do it. So what happened? Ad deshav yekrut shufcha. Until what happened? The baby became a baby who's a krut shufcha. Okay, basically he cut off too much, and now the baby, it's the status of a child who number one can't marry within the community because it's someone who can't actually have children. And what happened was that he couldn't find a moel to do it, so he did it himself. And because he did it himself, he ended up messing up the child. Okay, so basically, what in general, when they show this is what happened, you see something went wrong here. Not just something technically went wrong, but maybe something also halachically went wrong here, and something was wrong in his understanding of the halacha. So first, Amar, he said that he realizes this is similar to something we saw the other day. What did we see the other day? That somebody, the other day we saw that Rav had paskined like his own opinion and then said, oh, it's my fault. I got punished because I didn't do it like as I went against my friends. So here also, right, he got sick, remember? And then he said, I must have gotten sick because I paskin like myself and not like my friends. So here also, he realizes, Amar titili, I deserve this in a negative way. If you remember, we had all those sugyatas about, I deserve to get rewarded because I did Sudash Lishit. Remember, I eat 3 meals on Shabbat. I should be rewarded. There were all these lashonot, I should be rewarded. Here, titili means the opposite. I should be punished. And obviously that's what happened to me. My son became mutilated because what did I do? To avre adarav, because I went against Rav. Because Rav said, Beit Hillel holds you don't even need to do atafat brit, so of course you can't do it on Shabbat. Amalei Rav Nachman, now here Rav Nachman, this is kind of adding salt to the injury. What does he say? Amalei Rav Nachman, vad Shmuel lo avar? What do you mean you went against Rav? You also went against Shmuel, because Imar Amar Shmuel bechol b'Shabbat mi Amar. Shmuel said that according to Beit Hillel and Beit Shammai agree that you have to do atafat brit because of this orla kvusha. Because there might be, well, again, I don't even know how to translate this, but because as soon as I translate it, you'll see the two options. But because of hidden foreskin. Now, it's not clear, is it because there's clearly hidden foreskin that we don't see, or is it because maybe there's a hidden foreskin that we don't see? And that's a big difference, because if it's definite, well, then you can be mechalel Shabbat on the 8th day if you have to do it, and it's definite. But if it's safek, that maybe there's orla kvusha, and that's why we do hatafat brit, because of the safek, well, then, what do we say? Then you won't be able to do it on Shabbat, because it's another case of safek. So he says to him, what did you think that you got punished because you did like Rav, but you did against Rav, but you also didn't even do like Shmuel, because Shmuel says you need brit because of hatafat brit, because of orla kvusha, but he says because of that, you do it on a regular day, you don't do it on Shabbat, maybe there's foreskin hidden there. So now, obviously, what did Rav Ada bar Ava think? That he went searching for a moel and we couldn't find one, he did it himself. Hu savar vadai orla kvushahi. Right? He thought that it was clearly orla kvusha, and now we're going to see that there was actually a machloket about this. Machloket between two amoraim, de'it maraba amar chayshinan shema orla kvushahi. He thought it was safek, and Rabbi Yosef amar vadai orla kvushahi. He thought it was vadai. So it's not like Rav Ada made this up. There is an opinion that he was holding by. Rav Nachman obviously must have held like Rabbah. By the way, Rav Nachman often quotes Rabbah, so it makes sense that it's only safek, and therefore he says, why do you even do this according to Shmuel? It doesn't make sense. But he obviously held like Rav Yosef, where he thought it was vadai, and therefore he thought he had to do it on Shabbat, and that's why he tried to find someone. This, by the way, is a good example of when you're super worked up about something, right? Could you imagine? He's sitting there on Shabbat. He can't find a moel to do it. Finally, he says, I'll just do it myself. And then he messes it up, right? You can imagine how that would happen, right? And it's on the one hand, the rabbis view it in the punishment realm. He himself viewed it. This must be my punishment for going against Rav. But you can also see it from a psychological perspective. He was so worked up that he obviously didn't do it properly and was so, this is sometimes you get too crazy about getting the mitzvah done that he kind of messed up. or majorly messed up. Okay, anyway, now we're going to see Rav Yosef. Where does he get this? That it's vadai or la kfusha. He's going to bring a proof. Amar Rav Yosef, mina min ala. Where can I bring a proof for this? Titania, it says in the following Braita, Rabbi Eliezer HaKapar Omer. Now the assumption is, if Rabbi Eliezer HaKapar is saying this, he must have disagreed with Tanakama, and Rav Yosef is going to basically prove from the fact that he says this, we can assume that Tanakama says what I say. Okay, that's going to be the direction. So we're not going to see it from Rabbi Eliezer HaKapar himself. We're going to see it from what the assumption is that the rabbis said to disagree with him, and then the Gemara is going to reject it and say, no, you could say that the rabbis disagree with him in some other way. Okay, so it's not going to be a great proof because it's going to get knocked out, but we'll see. So Rabbi Eliezer HaKapar Omer, Lo nechleku Beit Shammai uBeit Hillel nolad shu mahul shetzarich latif mimenu dam brit. Again, it's a debate about what exactly Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel disagreed about. So they didn't disagree. By the way, this is very common. I want to just give a perspective on historically how things went. Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel were earlier in the time period of the Tanaim. So there's many times where later Tanaim, okay, those are people living in the time period that the Mishnah was written, where the Mishnah was compiled and put together, and the Mishnayot were first recited orally, and then only later at the end of the time period did they get written down. Because they were passed down orally, sometimes there's debates about what the debates were in the earlier generation. So it's very common that you'll have a machloket about what exactly was the machloket Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel. Were they arguing about this or were they arguing about that? So now he comes and says they weren't arguing about nolag shu mahul shetzarich latif mimenu dam brit. That wasn't their machloket. Do you need a dam brit if you were born circumcised? Ama nechleku lechalel avet haShabbat. The machloket, he said, was, can we desecrate Shabbat? In other words, everyone agrees you have to do dam brit, but the debate was, can you desecrate Shabbat or not? Beit Shammai omrim mechalalim alav haShabbat, uBeit Hillel omrim ein mechalalim alav haShabbat. So Beit Shammai says, yes, it's vadai or lakvusha. And Beit Hillel says, no, it's not, according to Rabbi Eliezer HaKapar. Now, this shouldn't help Rav Yosef yet, because then Beit Hillel holds against him, because Beit Hillel says it's only safek, and it wouldn't be dochesh Shabbat. And remember, he's trying to prove that it's vadai or lakvusha. So, but what's the assumption? As I said, we're going to say from the fact that he says this is the machloket and he disagrees with Tanakama, lav michlal de Tanakama savar mechalalim alav et haShabbat. Can't we then assume that what does Tanakama think? They think that even Beit Hillel would say that mechalalim alav et haShabbat, and that's the debate between them. But now the Gemara says no, not necessarily. Dilma Tanakama, maybe Tanakama thinks divrei hakol ein mechalalim kamach. Tanakama is saying that everyone agrees that ein mechalalim et haShabbat. In other words, according to Tanakama, maybe they don't even disagree. That they think, according to Tanakama, nobody thinks it could be mechalal Shabbat because obviously everybody thinks it's safek. So then they say im kain, but something doesn't make sense about that, because then what's Rabbi Eliezer HaKapar coming to disagree about? He's coming to, if everybody thinks according to Tanakama, you can't be mechalal Shabbat. And according to Rabbi Eliezer HaKapar, Beit Shammai thinks you can be mechalel Shabbat. Then what's he basically coming to teach you? Only Beit Shammai's opinion, because Beit Hillel, according to both, is going to be that it's safek and you can't do it on Shabbat. And they don't like that. They say, Im ken Rabbi Eliezer HaKapar tamad Beit Shammai atavash shminan. If we don't hold like Beit Shammai, then why would he come and disagree just to point out that Beit Shammai disagree about this? Right? Now, one could definitely argue about this. But if the assumption, and what they're saying is if the assumption is halacha is always like Beit Hillel, then Rabbi Eliezer HaKapar wouldn't need to start disagreeing just to bring up the difference in Beit Shammai. So therefore, the Gemara says, Dilma hachikama. Maybe this is how you should read it. Lo nechleku Beit Shammai uBeit Hillel b'davar zeh. He was basically trying to say there's no machloket at all. Okay? In other words, and then you could say that that there's no machloket at all. In which case, one second, right, that the whole machloket would really be, according to this, everyone would agree, ein mechalalim alav haShabbat, and the issue would be, do you need hatafat dam brit or not? Okay, and then that's what he's saying, and in which case he is trying to teach you Beit Shammai, because he wants you to know that there's no machloket, Beit Shammai, Beit Hillel, and Rabbi Eliezer HaKapar is saying there is a machloket. Amar Rabbi Asi. Now we're going to get a new halacha. This is an interesting one. You might be surprised by it. Kol she'imot me'al leda nimol lishmona. The 8th day Brit Milah is all dependent on the, okay, now here we make this connection between something that the Torah clearly connects, but we don't normally think to connect them. Okay, I'll read the pasuk and then I'll explain. Shneimar, Parshat Tazria, this is how it starts. Isha ki tazria v'yalda zachar, if a woman gives birth to a boy and to a male child, utmea shivat yamim, and then it says like her nida days. She becomes what's called tumat leda for 7 days for having a boy. Then the next verse is uba yom hashmini yimol basar orlato, and on the 8th day you do a brit milah. Now, we always think of the 8th day you do a brit milah not having any connection to this whatsoever, even though they're juxtaposed in the verse. Now, why do we think that? Well, we think that because when we started with Avraham Avinu, before there was Tumat Leda in the world, like there was no such thing. So he was told 8th day. So it seems like 8th day has nothing to do with this. But the verses clearly connect them and say, the woman is Tme'ah for 7 days, and therefore on the 8th day, you do the Brit Milah once she's no longer in her days of Tumat Leda. By the way, when I have one of my daughters, I was told by someone that Beverly Gribbets told me that her husband, Greenstein, had said specifically that you should do the Simchat Bat on the 15th day because the woman is in Nida for 14 days for the, or not Nida, but the way we call Nida. And she has Tumat Leda for 14 days for a girl. I'm not going to get into all the differences there. We'll talk about it in Nida. Anyway, there's no good answers, but she's Tme'ah for 14 days. And then, so he said, well, if on the 8th day you do the Brit Milah, so on the 15th day you should do the Simchat Bat. So anyone who's having a baby girl, you can keep that in mind. There's something nice about doing it on that day. Of course, you don't have to, but there's something nice about it. So now, by the way, I was doing it on the 6th day, I remember. And then she said, well, you should really do it on the 15th. So at that point, it wasn't so helpful. It was at the Simchat Bat. But anyway, we have now that there's an interconnection between those two things, and therefore the 8th day is specifically if she's Tme'ah D'mei Leda. But what if she has a cesarean section and she doesn't bleed? Okay, and mostly women do bleed, but let's say she doesn't. She doesn't have Tumat Leda. So then she doesn't need to do the Brit Milah on the 8th day. She could do the Brit, not she, and the family can do the Brit Milah earlier. Okay? So he says that you see from these Pesukim. So Amar le Abaye, Dorot HaRishonim yochichu she'ein imo Tme'at Leda v'nimo l'shmona. What do you mean? Look back at Abraham. There was no Tumat Leda. They did it on the 8th day. So those things are clearly not connected. So Amar le comes Rabbi Asi and he says, Nitna Torah nitchadsha halacha. You can't prove halacha from Abraham. In the time of Abraham, that was the case. But once the Torah was given, and this was stated, and it was interconnected, they became interconnected. They weren't before, but they are now. So now they ask again, Ini, is that really true? Baha itmar, okay, forgetting about whether we learn it from Abraham, but we have another proof. It was said, Yotze Dofen, umisheyesh lo shtei orlot. Okay, somebody, Yotze Dofen means, in Hebrew, that means literally an exception, but where does it come from? It comes from a baby who was born by cesarean section, because it's an atypical way of being born. So if you're Yotze Dofen, that's where the whole Yotze Dofen, right? Yotze Dofen means it comes out of the side, okay? And that's where we get that it's an exception. Umisheyesh lo shtei orlot. If someone has 2 orlot, Rashi gives 2 options what that means. Either shtei orlot zo al zel, kilu, the 2 layers of skin, or some people say shnei gidim. He has two parts of the body there. I don't know what that is exactly, but okay. So, mishesh lo shtei orlot, Rav Huna v'Rav Chia barav, chad amar mechalalin alav et haShabbat, v'chad amar ein mechalalin. What do you see here? They talk about a Yotze Dofen, and what do they say? When you do the Brit Milah, it's not mechalel Shabbat on the 8th day. In other words, if you had a C-section and you want to do the Brit Milah, so there's a machloket between them. Can you do it on Shabbat or can you not do it on Shabbat? Debate. We don't know who said what, but we have a debate about this. So now they say, wait a minute. But it's obvious from here, what's their debate? Their debate is, can you do it on the 8th day that falls on Shabbat or not? But they're not arguing about, do you do it on day number 8 or can you do it earlier? That's clearly not what they're arguing about. Otherwise, they would have said so. So what do you see? That goes against Rabbi Asi because he said the Yotze Dofen, who doesn't have D'mei Leda, can do the Brit Milah any day. And it's not connected to the 8th day. You can even do it earlier. So what do they answer? No, don't assume that they were only arguing about Chilul Shabbat, whether you could do it or not, and not about the 8th day. Ha b'hatalia. One is dependent on the other. And when they have a debate, can you be Mechalel Shabbat? The whole question is, can you be Mechalel Shabbat because do you have to do it on day number 8 or not? If you don't have to do it on day number 8, then if you can't be Mechalel Shabbat. If you have to do it on day number 8, then you can be. So that's the debate, in which case Rabbi Asi can still prove his approach. So we now have two approaches. We have Rabbi Asi and Abaye. Rabbi Asi thinks if you don't have Tumat Leida because you had a cesarean section and no bleeding, then you wouldn't have to do the Brit Milah specifically on day number 8. It sounds like you could do it any day. Now the Gemara and versus Abaye, who thinks that that's clearly not true. So the Gemara now says Kitanai. There's actually a machloka Tanaim about this. So this is a bit of a long braita, and we'll get into different details about it. Before we even read it, let me read you some verses from Breshit. In Breshit Perek Yud Zayin, when Avram gets commanded about Brit Milah, it says, "Uben shmonat yamim yimol lachem kol zachar ledorotechem." At day number 8, you have to give a Brit Milah to all the males, 4 generations. Yilid bayit umikna kesef mikol ben echara shalom mizarachahu. Not only do you have to give a Brit Milah to your son, to your sons, but you also have to give a Brit Milah to all your servants that are these are what we call avadim knaniim, your Canaanite slaves, who basically, and that's the whole thing, whenever we talk about it, we say they get a Brit Milah, and they basically undergo some sort of semi-conversion. They're obligated in positive commandments, and in negative commandments, but not the negative commandments that are time-bound. So they become semi-Jewish, okay? They live in your house, and they're part of your possession. So you lead by it. There's 2 terms. You lead by it means slaves that are born in your possession, and mikna kesef are ones that you acquire. So we're going to have to explain what's yilid bayit, what's miknat kesef. The next verse says, Himol yimol yilid beitcha umiknat kaspecha. You have to give a Brit Milah to these. Now, it's totally repetitive. We just said this. My brit will be in your flesh forever. What's missing? The second verse is a repeat of the first verse, but there's one important thing missing: 8 days. So what is the brightest? What do they learn from here? There must be 2 cases of Yilid Bayit and 2 cases of Miknat Kesef. One that you have to do it on the 8th day, and one that you can even do it on day number 1. Okay, so that's what they're basically going to say. So we're going to have 2 cases of Yilid Bayit and 2 cases of Miknat Kesef. Now the Braita sort of starts off very organized, and then it doesn't become so organized because there's a few gaps in the Braita, which later the Gemara is going to fill in. So now they say, remember why we brought this? We're not going to see exactly yet, but I'm just reminding you, Rabbi Asi said that that if she's tumat leida, then she does it on day number 8, and if not, not. Okay, and Abaye said it doesn't matter, always day number 8. And that's why we're bringing this, to show there's a machloket here about that topic. So here comes the Braita. As I said, they're going to say, because there's 2 verses, and one says 8 days and one doesn't, so there must be a Yilid Bayit, a slave born in your household, that will do a Brit Milah at day number 8, and one that will do it on day number 1. V'yesh miknat kesef, and likewise with the miknat kesef, the ones you acquire, shenimol l'shmona, v'yesh miknat kesef, shenimol l'echad. So far, the Braita doesn't tell you what these cases are. We'll get to it soon. So now we're going to start. Yesh miknat kesef shenimol l'shmona. So they start with the end here. There's a miknat kesef shenimol l'shmona. What's that? Ketzad lakach shivcha me'uberet v'achar kach yalda. If you buy a slave who's already pregnant, and then she gives birth. So when you basically acquired the ubar, the fetus, so therefore it's called miknat kesef. And since she was already in your possession when she was pregnant, and you acquired her already pregnant, but she gave birth when she was in your possession already, she was in your household, I should say. So then zeu miknat kesef animol l'shmona. That's 8 days. Lakach shivcha uvlada ima. What if you purchased? She already had the baby. You purchased her with the baby, the newborn baby. Zoe miknat kesef shenimol le'echad. Then it would be 1 day because the baby wasn't born in your household. Yesh yilid bayit shenimol l'shmona ketzad. So what's a yilid bayit shenimol l'shmona? Lakach shivcha v'nitabra etzlo. So if she became pregnant once she was already in your household, That's called Yili Bayit, because not only was it born in your household, but it was actually, she was impregnated in your household. Zeu Yili Bayit Hanimo Lishmona. Now, notice what they're missing, and if you see the chart, it's in big question marks. They didn't explain what Yili Bayit Hanimo Le'echad is. Okay? So we'll have to get back to that. It says Rav Chama. Some people say it should be Rabbi Chama because he's a Tana, and it should say Rebbe. Most of the Tanaim are Rebbe. Anyway, we won't get into that today, but maybe another time. Rabbi Chama Omer, Yalda va'achar kach hitzbila. Zehu yili bayit shenimo le'echad. He starts with the one that Tanakama didn't explain. What's a yili bayit shenimo le'echad? If she gave birth, but she hadn't yet, I told you they have to undergo a conversion. What kind of conversion? Not only if they're male do they need to brit milah, but they also need to do, males and females alike, need to do tefillah in a mikvah. Okay, so let's say she gave birth. She was in your household already, but she didn't yet undergo the full conversion. She didn't dunk in the mikvah. So if that's a yili bayit shenimo le'echad, she first gave birth and then went to the mikvah. Hidbila v'achar kach yalda, but if she first went to the mikvah and only afterwards, that's a yili bayit. Yili bayit doesn't need to mean that she became pregnant with the baby when she was in, no, it's that you purchased her while she was pregnant. Then she just didn't finish the process of being part of your household fully until after the birth. Then that would be a yili bayit hanimo le'echad. Okay, so what's missing in this part? Well, doesn't explain what miknat kesef shenimo le'echad and miknat kesef shenimo le'shmona. We'll get back to that after. So now the Gemara says, the Tanakama, the Tanakama, lo shani lebein hidbila v'achar kach yalda, ubein yalda v'achar kach hidbila. But Tanakama didn't make that distinction about going to the mikvah. Da'af agav de'ein imot me'al leda nimo l'shmona. Why? Because he says here, if ein imo, did I skip something here? No? Okay. So he says, no matter what, she's nimo l'shmona, it doesn't matter. Here comes the machloket. If she went to the mikvah or not. We don't care if she went to the mikvah. Why? Because it doesn't, no. If she goes to the mikvah, then all the laws of Judaism apply to her, except for the ones that don't, like the mitzvah lo taseh shazman grama, those don't apply. But what would apply to her? Tum'at leida, right? She'd have those 7 days. But according to Tanakama, it doesn't matter because those two things are not connected. And Tanakama thinks if it's born in the household, right, then it would need 8 days and not connected to Tum'at leida. Whereas Rabbi Chama says, only if she actually underwent the conversion, meaning she'd have the tumah of the 7 days. So therefore, I think I said 8 days before, I meant the 7 days. So the 7 days, according to Rabbi Chama, are important, like Rabbi Asi, so he must hold like Rabbi Chama, whereas Tanakama is more Abaye, who thinks that this has no connection. Okay, but now, since we already quoted this, we want to understand this better. So the Gemara says, Bishlam ala Rabbi Chama. Rabbi Chama makes sense because Mishkach ala yili bayit nimo le'echad yili bayit nimo le'shmona. Mikna kesef nimo le'echad mikna kesef nimo le'shmona. So it's clear what his yili bayit yimo, right? Yili bayit all depends on whether, right, she gave birth and then she went to the mikvah, or she gave birth and hadn't yet gone to the mikvah. And the miknat kesef, what's the miknat kesef? Now, he didn't explain either the miknat kesef, nimo le'echad or nimo le'shmona, but obviously there would also be connected to conversion. So how so? What would be that case? Yalda v'achar kach hidbila. If you notice, I put in a different font here because it doesn't appear in the Braita, it's just the Gemara explains it. So miknat kesef, nimo le'shmona is yalda v'achar kach hidbila. She gave, no, sorry, I keep losing my place here. Sorry. V'achar kach yalda ze yili bayit. Miknat kesef, nimo le'shmona kigon. He purchased a slave, a woman, while she was pregnant. So if she was already pregnant, in other words, the previous case, the Yili Bayit, was she got pregnant when she was already living in the house, she just hadn't undergone conversion yet. But if he purchases a shivcha when she's pregnant, and then hitbila, and then yalda, that would be miknat kesef, nimo l'shmona, because the ubar, the fetus, was bought because she was pregnant when he bought her. Remember that someone who's pregnant, you would, I don't know if you remember this, but those who learned the first cycle, this comes up in different places where they're worth more money because you're buying not only, it's logical, not only buying a servant, but she's a slave, but she has a baby inside, so she's worth more money. Actually, if I remember correctly, there's a debate because some people think she's weaker because she's pregnant and maybe she's worth less. I seem to remember there being something about that. Anyway, we'll get to it. What would that be? Okay, if he purchases the shifcha and the ubar, okay, then in other words, she already has the ubar, then that would be mikna kesef that nimol le'echad, because it's not a yili bayit, right? And it wasn't mikna kesef when it was purchased. Ela letanakama, bishlama kulu mishkachala. Okay, well, Tanakama makes sense because they gave all the reasons for, all the details. But yili bayit nimol le'echad yechem mishkachala. But what would be a yili bayit shenimol le'echad? It doesn't make any sense. So Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah, I'll tell you what case. It would be a unique case where lokach shivcha le'ubara. If you purchase the woman not because you want her to be your slave, you purchase her for the fetus. So she's pregnant, and you say, "I'm buying your future offspring." So now, this all depends on a machloket that comes up in other places in the Gemara, which is, let's say you buy a field, you don't buy the field, you buy the field for the fruits. How do you treat this? Do you own the field also, or do you not own the field? So there's some debate about it. So Hani Chalaman Damar, this makes sense if you say Kinyan Perot Lav Ki Kinyan Aguf. If you say, because remember, he doesn't think it has anything to do with toveling. Once you purchase her, the slave, she's yours. Once she's yours, then theoretically, her child should be given the Brit Milah on day number 8. But he says, in this case, you didn't purchase her. You only purchased the future offspring. In that case, what's the situation? You don't own her. You just own the offspring. Then it would be 1 day, because that's not the classic case here. So now they say that only works if you say, Kinyan Perot, Lavka Kinyan Aguf Dami, that when you purchase the Perot, the proceeds, which is for her, it's her fetus, that's not purchasing her. But Ela Laman Damar Kinyan Perot Ki Kinyan Aguf Dami Ma'ika Lememar. But how can you explain Tanakama if you hold that acquiring the fetus, also you basically acquire her because she's holding the fetus. So you basically own her, so to speak. When that happens, it doesn't make any sense. So Amar Rav Misharshia, he says it must be belokach shivcha amanat shelo lahatbila. You plan to acquire her not to be a shivcha kna'anit, the way we call it shivcha kna'anit. Theoretically, you could buy a slave who doesn't have the definition of the slaves that we're talking about. You're not planning ever to dunk her in the mikveh. If you're planning to tovel her, then she's viewed according to Tanakama. Again, that would be the difference. Tanakama, Rabbi Chama. Rabbi Chama says if you're planning to tovel her and you haven't yet, well, then it's nimola echad. But Tanakama thinks if you're planning to convert her, you just haven't put her in the mikveh yet, then it's all the same. But if you're not planning to and you're never planning to, that's not why you purchased her, then it would be nimola echad. Okay, so that's his answer. Okay, we'll end with this one last braita, which is Tanya, a new topic. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel Omer, Kol sheshaha 30 yom ba'adam eino nefel. Okay, if a baby lives for 30 days, this was their way of determining, is a baby going to be viable or not? Right? Remember, lots of babies unfortunately died in childbirth, after childbirth. In those days, it was not like it was today, although obviously nowadays we also have situations like this. So after 30 days, we assume it's eno nefel. We assume it's going to survive. How do we know this? When do we do the pidyon haben? When the baby's a month old. Okay, this also, right, for example, in modern medicine, if a baby has a fever and the baby's under 30 days, they immediately hospitalize the child because the first 30 days are very critical. By an animal, it's 8 days. How do we know this? From when can you bring a korban? When the animal is 8 days old. You can't bring it for a korban before. Once the animal is 8 days old, it can be brought as a sacrifice. That must mean it's viable because you wouldn't bring an animal that's about to die, right? A treifa or something wouldn't be brought as a sacrifice. So now the Gemara asks, and I'll leave you with this question. Halo shaha sveka have. If we're going to assume that if you didn't wait 30 days, the baby's still suffix, will it live? Will it die? Well, let's go back to the beginning of our page. What did we say? Suffix, you don't do the Brit Milah on Shabbat. So how could you ever, right? How could you ever do a Brit Milah on day number 8 if you don't know if this baby is going to be viable or not? With that question, I will leave you and have a good day.